Hey, I'm Paul with Bike Skins, and today we're going to talk about logos and specifically some of the challenges of logos that I don't really hear brought up a lot on different logo videos on YouTube. So, Bike Skins, we're a wrap design company for motorcycles, and of course, at the heart of Bike Skins, we're a design company. So, over the years, I've done lots of other designs outside the field of Bike Skins for different company logos and also different motorcycle club logos. Sometimes a customer will send me a rough draft of a logo that they've worked on or something they've had for a while and they kind of want to revamp it. And that's sometimes a good time to redesign the logos when they're getting ready to put a motorcycle wrap design on that has the logo on it. So one of the things I like to point out and ask up front to the client is what the majority of the use case is going to be. For instance, like where it's going to be placed at. Is it going to be on brick signage? Is it going to be on black t-shirts? Or is it going to be on an exterior wall or maybe an interior wall that's painted like corporate colors or something like that? Most of the time when you're getting logos done, a lot of people just kind of think of what a logo looks like on a white background. And so if you change the background, if you change the presentation of the logo background, it will really kind of help guide you into a range of designs or changes to the logo that really help out the logo, help it stand out, sometimes strengthen the corporate colors of the company and logo. So you really want to be asking up front where the most common use case is. In some cases, that may be like on a website or something like that, but there's many times where it could be very strict. So, like a lot of club logos are on black t-shirts and the back of black leather jackets and things like that. So you want it to look good. And if you don't think about these things up front, sometimes you wind up having to do other things like adding a glow or adding a stroke or something like that to the outside of the logo to make it stand out. And a lot of times that just makes the logo look more busy. So what I want to do is walk you through some of the examples that I've done in the past and kind of point out a few things I've just talked about. Okay, so this image here has their new club logo that I designed for them on the left, and then the old one is on the right. So you can see that someone attempted to do some Photoshop or airbrush here to create this one. So I took a lot of the aspects and redid it here. So this is on a white background. If I go back to the file, so I did a female version and a male version. If I go back to the file, you can actually change up some of the things in the presentation background. So here it's shown with a black background, and here it is with the white. So sometimes if you go to a black, if you have a lot of the blacks in the logo, like the tires and the bottom of the motorcycle and stuff, it can kind of make some of these areas get lost. So that's why these blacks in the logo aren't really a true black. A lot of them are kind of like a gray. So I could demonstrate this for you if I add this adjustment layer on. And so now the tires and the bottom of the motorcycle really get lost. And then so what sometimes if you're looking at a logo like this, let's say you looked at it on white, it looks fine. The tires and everything stand out. But then let's say the client gets it and they say, hey, it doesn't look good on black. The outline of the tires and everything's not really standing out. So then sometimes what a logo designer may do is they say, oh, let's add a glow or a stroke to the outside. And that's fine too. But then once you do that, it really adds a lot of unnecessary contrast to some of these design elements. And it just makes it look more busy than it needs to. So that's why it's good from the get-go to be looking at it with a black background and make sure you get your black levels right and things like that. Here's another one that I also did. So this one's a New Orleans based club, and you can see on the left here's their original image, and the one that we redid was on the right. So this one from the get-go we started with it being on a black background. And so once you have a black background, it really kind of changes the look and feel of a logo. You can kind of do a few things that you wouldn't be able to do if it was white. So like this glow, for example, really kind of helps aid in the spookiness effect of this logo. But overall, it just looks like you would imagine a skeleton in the shadows that would glow. So I got a couple other images here. So this is one of the things too I get into is I'll talk to clients about this. Sometimes they'll work up a logo on a white background, and then once that company has their logo, they'll give it to a sign shop, and then a sign shop will just do the shape of the logo on a white background. And so you see a lot of lower tier companies have their signage set up like this, like at a strip mall or something, and it just doesn't look as professional. So like if you looked at Staples or any other like Best Buy or something, their background of their signage is going to have their corporate colors in it, and then the actual letters may be white. Okay, and so here's another example I was talking about. Sometimes an interior wall will represent the corporate colors of the business. So you have to have, if your main lettering or graphic is on there, it has to kind of contrast with that. So you'd want to keep that in mind with the design. Here's another logo I've worked on recently. This is for a construction company. This logo is going to live on the side of a white truck, and most construction companies, all of their trucks are white. So it's very common to kind of see this. Often for a construction business, you're going to be designing it on a white background. So just keep that in mind. Here's another one I worked on recently. So this one is, sometimes you have logo variations. So this is a painting company logo I did for a friend of mine. And if we take a look at this one, there's two variations or a couple variations here. So there's one with the palette and one without the palette. So when you're on a white background, the one with the palette would look okay, but definitely on a white background, the one without the palette really stands out. It's highly readable and legible. But then you think about the interior of a building like this. Is the wall going to be white? Is the website banner colors of the top of the website, is it going to be white? Like, you're kind of locking yourself into being white if you go with this variation all the time. So sometimes it's good to do a variation. Okay, and that's what this example is for. So this is the storefront, or the area around the storefront. And so this is actually a nighttime comp to kind of demonstrate how the palette logo would work if it was cut out and lit. And we can also remove that exposure, and we can also remove this outer glow and that glow. And so the cutout wouldn't work unless you had the cutout wouldn't work unless you had that outer glow back there to kind of help illuminate the bricks and make it look white. You could also do it like this with a palette. Okay, and I do want to show you the other one. It's just a script without the shape behind it. So that's this one right here. We can actually, I've got a little bit of a drop shadow. You can tell this just doesn't look as professional being on a white square. We could do a couple things here. We could remove this effect, and maybe let's zoom in and select to mask some of the white. Okay, and so here's with the white knocked out. You can see that just doesn't stand out against the bricks. Even if you put a shadow behind it, it just doesn't work. So let me go ahead and throw away this mask real quick. And so, of course, then you would have to do either a rectangle shape, or you could have the shape of the palette behind that in white. But alternatively, if you have the alternative version, so one of these ones with the palette, if you did that version, it kind of allows you to have more corporate colors in the actual signage and logo, and also it doesn't look as bad as having the white in the background like you see at a lot of lower tier stores. Okay, and so that wraps up this video. If you're creating a logo, or if you're having a logo made for you, make sure that the presentation background of the logo as you're reviewing it matches the background color of the majority of the use case, such as a brick wall or a painted wall or a black t-shirt.